Okay, can someone do our invocation? If we could, somebody volunteer?
You volunteer for invocation?
Invocation?
Darren will. I see his Facebook posts all the time. I'll do it. I
Good.
knew it.
Please stand.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. You come back.
You want me to do it from here?
Sure.
First of all, thank you for this privilege. If we could all bow our heads. Lord, please keep us in mind. Help us with our decision making today. We are doing this on behalf of the entire county of Merced and for the safety of those folks driving through Merced County. Please keep this in our forefront in the decisions we make today and allow us to work together with no animosity with the decisions we make. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I call this meeting to order for February 20th, 2025. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us, and if we could have roll call, please.
Director Nielsen?
Here.
Look at that.
This timing is impeccable.
Director Reed?
Here.
Director Nagy?
Here.
Director Samra?
Here.
Director Serrato?
Here.
Director Pacheco? Director Pedroso?
Here.
Director McDaniel?
Present.
Director Pereira? Chair Amabel?
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Apologies. Director Silvera?
Present.
Thank you, sir.
We'll make note of that on the minutes there. Okay, approval of the agenda. Any questions on the agenda? Any board members would like to discuss?
Mr. Chair, if I could make a request that the board move the items 14 and 15, which is the executive director's report and the director's report, to occur before closed session. So essentially have closed session just before adjournment for consideration, please.
Will do. Any other questions on the agenda? Comments?
Need a motion.
Need a motion?
With the recommendation.
With the, okay. We have a motion and a second with the recommendations from staff. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Now we come to our public comment. Public comment is available in advance of during our meeting. You can see instructions should be in the back there. Anyone would like to speak to this board on any item that's within our jurisdiction, please come forward. Okay, do not see or hear anyone coming forward. We will move on to reports and presentation. And first presentation and report is from Caltrans District 10.
Good afternoon, everyone. We can start with the slides. Thank you. So, as usual, we'll be going over key projects, action items, and some Q&A. So, with that, next, please. We'll start east to west. I'll just, we have the same project list, so I'll jump to the changes to updates on those projects to expedite this. We have two presentations today. So we'll jump to Crosswalk and Fashion Beacon in Merced, San Joaquin. This is Planada. And next slide, please. Next slide. So here, we are moving forward with the project. This is the where we drop few locations to bring it under the funding. Next slide, please. And, previous one. The final environmental document is expected in mid-March, so it's coming. And the team is working on right-of-way. They are finalizing the right-of-way needs right now. Next slide. Next is the Planada intersection improvement. This is where we are proposing a roundabout. And here, we got one RON approved by CTC in January meeting, and 3 parcels are acquired. We are moving forward with the sewer district. We have the plans, and they're under review. So the project is moving forward. Next, please. Thank you. Next is our Merced widening project. This is in the town, 0U230. This is in the pit stage. Next, please. So this is where I discussed the alternatives and the costs last time. I have added few slides. Next one, please. Next one. And so our target date to complete the project initiation document is June 2026. And next slide, please. So here are the some alternatives, same what we discussed last time. So these are the layouts of those alternatives. Only thing I would like to remind is this was done in previous environment where we were going outside widening and 8 lanes and $500 million. So definitely this is just to show what was covered last time, but the team will be working on to make it most probably median widening, feasible, and bring the cost down. So next slide, please. So this is where we were widening on both sides, taking more right-of-way. So we'll cut down on the right-of-way take. So that's what the team is working on. Next slide. So this is where we were widening on the east side, west side, in phases. Next, please. So this is the north at Atwater, and this is where it's similar approach. We had 4 alternatives, and I have added some slides, layouts of those alternatives this time. Team is working on it. They've started working on it. Next slide, please. So same here. We have these alternatives. Team will looking into these alternatives, and they will be brainstorming some new, more feasible alternative that can be proposed with less right-of-way impact. Next, please. Same target date for the project initiation document, June of 2026. And I believe we have a meeting on this upcoming meetings in next week. This is what we are proposing, alternate 1. You see tight dam in there. Most probably we'll keep that one. Next, please. Similar layout. Next, please. Of course, since then there has been a lot of development. So team will be looking into the impacts. They'll be analyzing this again. Next, please. Thank you.
Anand, if I could just to clarify, so these maps are the documents that were reflected the alternatives in the original PSR PID document in 2008.
There were 2 documents. So one was, if you go back, I have the year. I don't remember right now.
So just to not cause any consternation, I saw some panic. So these were what was originally studied, and these are going to be the foundation in the sense of now we're looking at this document and with the new development that's happened, and also looking at only doing a 6-lane facility with median widening as much as possible. So this was these maps were kind of the full scope of all alternatives that looked all the way into even an 8-lane facility. So they're for demonstration purposes only.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Maybe some of the alternatives are where I can say that's not what we are going to do, definitely.
Yeah.
The no 8-lane widening, you can tell right away. So, thank you. Next, please. Similar view, building in different stages I covered last time. Next, please. We jump to State Route 59 pavement anchor project. This is where we have north segment and south segment. We are targeting to get design done in our January 2026. We are planning to break the north and south and make the north as contribution only to the city's project. Next, please. And this is the 1M140, that's the 4-lane winding city project where we'll be contributing the north segment of the previous project to this project. And this is where we are working on the co-op. We have received the comments, we are reviewing it. It'll go to legal review, and then we'll send it for signatures. And we plan to have the co-op signed by middle of March. Thank you. 0V690, Merced Pavement Anchor Project. This is where, next please. So this is where we are, we have added El Nido scope to the project, added crosswalk, and addressed the drainage system. Next please. So here the update is that the flashing beacon, the team looked into solar power and discovered that's, it has some safety issue due to the post, so they're looking at other options. And once they have, I will update you next time what option they have. Next slide, please. Los Benos, 152 pavement anchor project. This project is moving forward. Here, the update is on the next slide, please. So, previous one. Oh yeah, that's the one. So this is a project where in the feasibility study where when we did the PID, it had about 4,700 linear feet of sidewalk. And in environmental phase, we bumped it up to more than 10,000 linear feet. And so what that did was that increased our parcel take from 28 to 75. And also since then, our design information bulletin came out, which restricted how much work you can do under a capital maintenance project. So this was a CAPM, capital maintenance, prevention maintenance project. And so the team sat down and they look into what can we do to keep moving the project, not delay it. So they have reduced the linear feet to 8,000 of sidewalk, and that reduces the parcel from 75 to 54. Tomorrow we are meeting with headquarters. We have requested 1-year extension to this project, moving the project out to March of 2027. That's what we are asking them so that we can acquire those 54 parcels. But the team, the deadline for the team is still October of 2026, but we are asking for delivery in March of 2026. We moved it out from March of 26 to October of 26, but we're asking headquarters permission till March of 27 in case we run into some right-of-way challenges. So next we have, this is where we were asked to contribute to the bike path from Merced College to the Badger Flat Road, and we were able to open a minor A project, which will be a financially contribution-only project, where we'll be contributing a maximum of 1.25 million to the city's project there. County's project. And what we need here is, still we need is when we do final contribution, we need project management, headquarters project management approval, and also financial programming approval. So that's what we are doing right now. But before we can start, we will need a cooperative agreement with the county. So we'll initiate that. So. And our team is there to help them, to guide their consultant. Next is 59 Gerard Avenue intersection improvement project. And this project is moving forward. Next slide, please. So the design phase will be completed in June of 2025. And the update is RON for one parcel was approved in January CTC meeting, and we have agreement for 4 parcels. We are still negotiating with one parcel where the owner wants us to connect the septic tank to the sewer system. So we are working on it. So that's the critical path right now for that project. Next, please. Merced 33 curb ramp sidewalk driveway project. This project is in 2 locations, is in construction. Next, please. So project is 95% complete. Completion date is May 25. DOS Pellos work is nearly done. We are waiting for 15 PG&E walls to be upgraded and solar connection to the sidewalk. So it's moving forward. Next, please. So now we jump to ongoing and action items. So I'm reporting on the ongoing activities on encampment. Currently, right now, the team, our consultant, is working in Merced, and after this, they again will come back in 5 to 6 weeks to continue the third round. So right now, their target is Livingston, 2 areas, Atwater, 2 sites, and Merced, 7 sites. So that's what they're working on. So these are some action items from last meeting and previous meetings. One is 152 Volta Road, center pavement condition. So this is where the maintenance was to do a cold patch right now, and then they will do a hot mix in summer when weather gets better. And we also have future 2 projects that's coming through, which will be upgrading them. But they are out in 2027 and 2030. Next, please. So one of the action from last time is about inquiry on curbs within 20 feet of crosswalks and what Caltrans plan is. So right now, we are not enforcing it right now, so we are not painting, and we are not restricting any parking right now, but if we are asked to investigate a location, we can consider it. And we will work with the agency. Any agency, any local agency wants to implement it, we can work with them. If they want to paint it, or if they want to work on it, then they will have to come as an encroachment permit and do the work. Of course, it will require painting as well as some signage. And then the other issue is that it should be approved by the city council when they approach us. So. Thank you. Next is 33-140 maintenance near CCID Canal, Sullivan Road. This is the section where this project was added to our 1R160 maintenance project, and since then we have 2 projects that were moved out to next fiscal year, so they have taken that spot, and so this project will be going out in 26-27, but our maintenance crew is looking into it and working on to see what can they do in the interim measure. So, next, please. So this is State Route 59 on Edendale Canal. So our maintenance folk found this, and they said it was identified as a pothole. They have repaired it, and they'll continue to monitor that section. Thank you. Next one, please. So this is what's the process to adopt a route from a local route to a state highway. So our staff did some research, and looks like it will take legislative action to do that, and then CTC will determine where the route will go. But then these are few sections we have taken from our project development procedure manual, which guides us. So that's where it will happen. And next is Broadway and 99, where the fence where a big truck crossed over. So this is where our traffic operation team is looking into, and they are compiling the data right now, and which will be followed with a standard procedure followed by field review, and then they'll compile and report it to us, and then I'll share those reports. So end of April is the target date for that one. Next, please. 152 curve. So there's a, before Turner Island Road, Orchid Park, there's a slight curve there. Same thing, team is looking into that, and they have already done the field review for this one, and now they're compiling the data, and they're looking into various options. So one is signage or delineation or both. So once the report is completed in May, I'll be sharing that here. Okay, that's it from my side.
Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Armand, thank you. Anand, sorry. I also reported one at Volta Road, not Volta, at Ramus Road and Highway 152, and I appreciate the looking into the one at Volta Road, but this one currently, you know, as we get closer to fair season, there's 40 to 50 kids that have their animals at the school farm located out there on the north side of 152 on Ramus Road. And so that intersection in the middle, again, it's pretty rough. And these kids at this time of the year, they're going out there in the evening time. When they're coming home, it's dark. You know, that intersection, or it's really not even an intersection, it's just that very little median in between both lanes of 152. And so I know Stacy had brought that to your attention. So this is one that is, you know, the fair starts first week of May. So until then, these kids are going to be, you're going to have 40 to 50 young, new drivers, 2 years driving at best, that are going to be traversing that area. So anything that the maintenance crew could do and to expedite that, to get those, kind of get that cleaned up. And then also as a temporary fix, just, you know, maybe some cold patch, but then also like it to be considered for maybe later in the fall or summer doing kind of a hot patch in that area.
Yes, they have looked both Volta and Ramos, and they're addressing both at the same time.
Perfect.
And that's an update that I had to add to your report, was an email from Tanya that indicated that this area, they're looking, the maintenance team has repairs planned for I-5 in the north end of 152, which is the Volta project, and they're looking at adding the additional tonnage to see if it can be included in that project. In the interim, she indicated that they can grade and gravel the area when the storm, you know, the storms that just passed let up, just to kind of be an interim solution. So I want to make sure. So thank you for that. Sorry, Anand.
I'll report on the progress of that one too. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the information. On one of them you had, on one of the slides, and I'm not seeing it on the slide that was sent to us yesterday, but you talked about the encampments and the cleanups and stuff that you guys are doing, and I appreciate that. But which one on southbound 99? Because there's one right on Childs, and it's terrible. It's like a hotel down there.
Yeah, so the last round they did Childs. Can you please go back to the slide of is Child covered again? So last round, when I reported last time, they were doing Childs, but I can ask them to look into it again because they're already there.
Yeah, please. It's bad. Thank you.
Okay. Want to thank you again for all your work within the city of Merced. Thank you for these very thorough updates too. We appreciate all the documentation you give. Just wanted to check if I could follow up offline about some of the basic road maintenance on the Caltrans within the city of Merced. I'll follow up offline, but just you know, if I could work just to help identify just potholing, crack filling, that kind of stuff. So, okay, thank you.
I'll reach out to you on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Mike?
Just quickly, thank you for putting the pictures in your presentation. It made it a lot more interesting. And thank you for the clarification, Stacy, on that. That was old pictures, because the CM and I were looking at that yesterday, and it's like, wow, you're going to wipe out a large portion of our sales tax revenue. Thanks a lot.
I felt the energy rise in the room.
Yes, it kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you putting some remarks in there about the question I had a couple months ago. So I look forward to whatever that ends up being. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to SR 140. Thank you, Armand.
We do want to present the SR 140, the active transportation study. This was a study that took quite some time where we worked with the city and county and various members. And with that, we have online Charles Carroll to walk through that presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Not well.
Microphone up to it.
Okay, just want to make sure you all can hear me.
We're working on it, Charles.
Okay,
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
all right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so let me go ahead and get started here. So I am Charles Carroll. I am the District 10 Active Transportation Portfolio Manager. And I'd like to share with you some information today about a recently completed corridor feasibility study for State Route 140 in Merced. And we'll go ahead and we'll go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about a few things here. I'm just going to give you an outline of the presentation as well as the scope of the study, what the reasons for the feasibility study were, why we did that, why we did this study, the layout of the feasibility study. We'll go over existing conditions, a few pieces of information about engagement, as well as some possible conceptual design strategies, as well as some possible next steps. And next slide. So this was the scope of the feasibility study that we did in 2024. It was pretty much from Massasoit Street on the west side of town all the way over to the Campus Parkway access intersection on the east side, east of the city of Merced. So for post miles, that's pretty much from post mile 35.0 all the way out to 38.38. It also included a little bit of pieces of SR 59, as well as a little bit of the 13th and 14th streets when they are, at least in the locations in which they are on the state highway system. Next slide. So why did we do this, right? So the main reason we went after this corridor, this location for this feasibility study was there are a variety of needs in this corridor that we thought were important that needed to be addressed. And one of those, number one, was there were 4 fatal and 12 severe injury crashes involving active transportation on the state highway system from 2012 to 2021. 9 fatal and 28 severe, if including streets and highways within 1 to 2 blocks of the corridor. This is according to the Transportation Injury Mapping System, which is maintained by UC Berkeley, that's publicly accessible data. Another reason we identified this corridor for further study was because it was listed as a Tier 1 category in statewide headquarters 2023 California Active Transportation Plan Mapping. So that is a document that looks at all segments on the state highway system throughout the state of California and assigns a tiered ranking in terms of near-term priority. So you have 3 tiers. Tier 3 is the most long-range need ranking. Tier 1 means that it's the most near-term immediate need. So it's a situation where something needs to be done sooner than later. And so when you have a segment that scores Tier 1, that generally means that it's a near-term high-ranking need. Number 3, the corridor includes census tracts that are listed in the overall 95th percentile for cumulative burden impacts. That's according to the California Environmental Screen 4.0, which is the tool that agencies use to help determine where locations are throughout the state that include communities that are historically underrepresented or that deal with a level of impact or environmental burden beyond what most communities or census tracts in California has. The California Healthy Places Index 3.0 is also a data source that we looked into, and for California HPI 3.0, there were also tracts in the corridor area that scored in the lowest 10th percentile. So what that generally means is that these are communities that exhibit more of a greater need, or are disadvantaged, or that have a greater impact that affects quality of life compared to most other census tracts in the state of California. Number 5, there are no current SHOP projects with complete streets currently planned or scheduled in the corridor. So we saw this as a sort of an opportunity to go after a location to help address that gap as far as walking and biking goes on the state highway system. Number 6, levels of traffic stress, LTS. So in this corridor on 140 in Merced, we noted that we're looking at LTS scores of 3 and 4. So the higher the LTS score, the more stressful the conditions are for walking and biking on or close to a state highway. So that includes considerations like posted speed limits, actual speeds, and volumes, ADTs, truck volumes. So the greater these volumes and ADTs are, as well as the higher the posted speed limit, generally that leads to a more stressful situation, a less ideal situation for walking and biking. And that's something that we're, especially in urban areas, built environments, we're particularly interested in trying to abate or trying to address. And of course, number 7, opportunity to convert short distance vehicle trips. This is generally something we see in built environments overall. You have higher intersection densities and existing transit, existing bus stops, land uses that are closer together and sometimes mixed. That means there's more opportunity to convert short distance vehicle trips to walking and biking. Next slide. So this is just a visual of the map that we retrieved from TIMS last year. This indicates concentrations of severe crashes and collisions, severe and fatal crashes and collisions in this corridor from 2012 to 2021, red indicating a fatal injury, and then orange indicating a severe injury. So again, this is one of the reasons we wanted to look at this corridor. Traffic operations and traffic safety have also indicated that this is a corridor that is something that they're looking into as well. And that's noted in the document. Next slide. So as far as what's in the document, which was signed and completed last November, this is just a list of what's in the outline, existing conditions. We cover things like land use, population. We have a section that covers planned and existing projects based on what's in Merced's regional transportation plan, as well as what's in our own project lists. Public engagement and coordination. We talk about a few design concepts. There's a section that covers that as well, with visuals, as well as implementation strategies as far as what could come next for potential funding and continuing outreach. And I want to clarify, this is a feasibility study. It is conceptual. It is not a project. The intent is for this to be a catalyst and to get the ball rolling, to keep that conversation going as far as taking something that's a concept and then eventually turning that into a future project. But the feasibility study itself is not a project. Next slide. This is just the land use map, which is included in our existing conditions. This indicates, close in land uses adjacent to each other here in the city of Merced. And again, this is something we take into consideration Being that this is a built environment, we do see a greater opportunity for that potential of converting short distance vehicle trips to walking and biking, which can help lower vehicle miles traveled. Next slide. This is a cross-section of high-speed rail. We do mention it in the existing conditions. Of course, that's not the focus of this feasibility study, but the corridor we looked at is pretty much adjacent to, bordering right on where that prospective station would go in the future. So that's a visual, and there's a section that talks about that as well. How and there's there's a conversation that we want to have about how we can link up walking and biking to a future station, and to what extent that can happen in a context with as little stress as necessary for pedestrians and bicyclists, especially when they connect from South Merced to the station area on the north side of 99. Next slide. So these were some of the local agencies and interests we reached out to, the city, the county, as well as MCAG, D10 BPAC membership, whose committee, we have people who serve on that, the Bicyclist Pedestrian Advisory Committee for District 10, who are also connected to Catholic Charities, and they have been providing feedback on some potential things that could be done to address walking and biking along State Route 140, as well as local residents and businesses who participated in a survey that we did last year for this feasibility study. Next slide. Which is right here. So we did put together a survey, and that was done using Esri's, it was using a geospatial app. And we did this survey online, and this was the front of the survey. This is what you would see when you jumped to the website, either on your phone or on your computer. The survey was in English and in Spanish. We also had paper versions we distributed as well last year. The next slide, I believe, will show you some of those, the PIO involvement that we had, which included basically an advertisement just to get the word out there. This is what you're seeing here. We included the link, we included a QR code, pretty much a basic description of, hey, this is what's going on. We're interested in your feedback so that we can help us identify some locations in the city and county of Merced where you think there are needs or gaps or barriers for walking and biking comfortably. Next slide. These were some of the locations that were identified in the survey. So each red dot pretty much indicates where a geospatial comment was logged in the survey. So we have more than a few on SR 140 itself, as well as a few others within 2 blocks or so of the corridor. Next slide. And these were some of the comments we received. So we heard some feedback in that survey, things including like item number 1, I would use every bike lane if it would exist. We had another comment, pedestrian was killed recently on Yosemite Parkway. People drive way too fast. That is definitely something we are quite concerned about. So yeah, that comment was logged as well. We had another comment having to do with traffic calming measures, students nearby who are going to Golden Valley High School nearby that walk or bike to school, and this particular stretch of road being quite treacherous in the winter, particularly when you have adverse weather. This is a heavily trafficked stretch of highway passing through residential and commercial areas by commuters. So we had some pretty lengthy comments as well. There is not a safe walking path to connect 99 underpass to 16th. I see many people walking in this area. we had a comment to the effect of people that do walk and ride in this area do not care about vehicles and cut across traffic all the time. So we got a variety of comments. These were just a few of the ones that we received. But this gives you an example of the kind of feedback that we've gotten so far. Next slide. These are some potential concepts that we put together, and again, these are concepts. So these are subject to change, and as we keep this conversation going and we look at subsequent steps, these concepts may change as well, contingent on actual right-of-way constraints or other considerations that we want to factor in. But as an example, for our street under 99, a potential way to abate or to mitigate gaps and barriers for walking and biking would be to utilize that right-of-way underneath the bridge to potentially go after a Class 4 protected bike facility, as well as having the sidewalk as well. Next slide. And for State Route 140 over the BNSF Bridge, this is located on the east side of the corridor study, east of Parsons. So when you go over that bridge that goes over the tracks, here's a potential concept that could be used to help address. This is one idea. Another idea is to have a bike lane on either side of the bridge, or to have a two-way Class 4 on the westbound side of the bridge, at least 10 feet wide. We would try to maintain minimum buffers and minimum separators between those bike lanes and the vehicle lanes. And another slide. Next slide, please. This is for X to V. So this has to do with the block between X and V streets on the west side of the corridor study area, just west of State Route 99. And this is looks to be a constrained environment in terms of the right-of-way. So one concept to help address the gaps and barriers is to widen the sidewalk, as well as to possibly install some kind of a railing that would help separate the walking and the biking from the vehicle traffic. It can get quite busy there at certain times of the day. During the peak hour, you can get a lot of ADT there, a lot of volume in that area. The visual here that's represented may not necessarily actually indicate what type of design would be utilized as far as a vertical separator go, or as far as a railing goes, but it's pretty much, at the time, it was the only visual feature available in the software that we used to model the concept. And that street fix, which is free, open to, it's a public resource. Anybody can use that. Next slide. These are plan views of concepts. The one on the left showing bulb outs or daylighting at Sydney Lane. This would narrow the distance pedestrians would have to cross, as well as installing a high visibility crosswalk. The green line indicating a Class 4 bike facility, the blue line indicating on-street parking. To the right, we have V Street and the couplets, the red line indicating a Class 4 facility, a potential two-way Class 4 facility, as well as the yellow lines indicating the improvement of existing crosswalks to high visibility crosswalks, which would be the ladder crosswalks, not just the simple parallel barred crosswalks that are out there, but rather ladder crosswalks or zebra crosswalks instead. Next slide. This is on the east side of the corridor study area on Yosemite Parkway, pretty much east of Motel and Glen Avenues. So what you're looking at here, the purple indicating a widened sidewalk on both sides of 140, as well as the blue indicating, the light blue indicating on-street parking. So again, it's conceptual. Does the on-street parking stay or go? I think that would be part of a future conversation. But in this case, in this concept view, what you're seeing here is because of likely constrained right-of-way in this area, something that we could try to do is to just widen the existing sidewalks to accommodate for both walking and biking on both sides of the street. And that's what the purple line is indicating. We're also seeing bulbouts here at the intersections, daylighting, as well as a possible refuge island, which is indicated by the orange rectangle there with the high visibility crosswalk there at Laurel Avenue. Again, another way to help improve the comfort of walking and biking in Merced. Next slide. This is further east, near at the Parsons Avenue intersection. Again, based on the geometry of the intersection, one potential concept here is a refuge island to help break up the distances pedestrians would have to cross to get from one side of 140 to the other, as well as the green line indicating a Class 4 bike facility. In this stretch of 140, the right-of-way may be wide enough to accommodate a Class 4 facility in each direction. So we show that here in the concept. Next slide. So where we are right now, the study is completed. It's been signed in 2024. We did email that out to MCAG, to the county, and to the city, as well as to our BPAC members, our District 10 Bicyclist Pedestrian Advisory Committee in 2024 in December. Follow-up steps. So one thing we're looking at doing is updating our public-facing website here in District 10. That website's going to have more information about the feasibility study. It'll have a high-level overview of that study. And when that website goes live, we'll let you know. We hope to be coordinating with PIO on a press release to pretty much, again, let people know that that feasibility study is information about that feasibility study has a website, and we would direct them to that website. Other things we hope to do in the future is beyond our current presentation here at this MCAG board meeting, but we also hope to keep that engagement going, not just with not just with BPAC, but with you guys as well. So with the Merced community, we want to continue to pursue that follow-up and that engagement, because again, these are concepts. We see this as a start, as a catalyst to something hopefully in the future that becomes more concrete. So we want to keep that outreach going, and we also hope to identify in the future potential funding opportunities to turn these concepts from something that is in a plan or in a study into something that is in a future project. Next slide. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much, and I'm open to questions.
Questions?
Thank you. On this, I know this is not a project, but if it were to turn into a project, how much work would be duplicated in doing a project study report? Like, how much of this stuff, like the front end work that you've already done, would make it easier for a project study report if this were to turn into a project?
So I think, I think what would have to occur is, right, I mean, this is, in the future, in subsequent planning and project phases, there is going to be more technical work needed. So we're talking about, defining what the right-of-way condition is going to be, as what the scope, the cost, and the schedule is going to be. That would, of course, that would lead to a PID. So there is more work that needs to be done, and I think it's just part of that, that discussion that we're going to have. So, I don't know what to do. We to what extent we would reduce or try to do, how many things would we try to do at once? But there is a step-by-step process involved, and that, when we get to that point, that process will occur, and that kind of reporting will occur, and it will happen regardless. But the good thing about the feasibility study is that it gives a high-level overview of what the need is, or what the gaps and the barriers are, and we hope to supplement that with continued outreach. And so we build off of that feasibility study, we build off the outreach. And by doing that, it gives us clear information as to what members of the public see as a specific location that has a need. And then once we have that information, we can build off of that so that when we do go into subsequent planning and project phases, we're capturing things in such a way as to prevent missing something obvious or missing something important. By getting that information early on, by getting that feedback early on, we help prevent duplicative effort as far as, having to go back and acknowledge something that may not have been picked up soon.
Thank you.
I am Anand here, back again. I can maybe answer from project management side of view is when we initiate a project, we do a PIP, which is project initiation plan. And before, in that, all functional units, planning and environmental and project management and design, they all come together and they formulate the project. What's needed for this project, they come up with a cost estimate, and they use that to initiate a project. And when the project is open, the project manager is assigned, the team is assigned, and they start the PID, project initiation document. So this information, what he has compiled, will be brought to that initial team, and they'll be looking into, okay, this is one requirement, and what are other requirements, what are the findings they have from different functional units, and they'll combine into, and then they'll generate this purpose and need for the document. So that's how the final project study report that'll come out will mention this report and any other finding that the whole team finds in that.
Perfect. So then how much did this study cost us?
Oh, this one I have no idea.
Well, it cost the taxpayers, so it might have been at no cost to Merced County, but it wasn't for free. Do we have a ballpark? Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? On board? That should do it. Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. And now we'll move on to item 5, which is informational only. We have item A, B, C. Any board members would like to discuss any item on the information? A, B, or C? Okay, not seeing anyone interested in that. We will move on to the consent calendar. And this is, again, A, B, and C, one vote for those items. Any board members, staff would like any of these items discussed? Any presentations on any of these? Any public input on item 6, the consent agenda from Merced County Association of Governments? Not seeing any. Okay, what's the...
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve consent calendar as submitted. Any questions or comments? Not hearing any. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, move on to item 7. These are action items also. And
That's me.
yeah, turn it over to Stacy. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could ask, can we get the agenda? Do we have the agenda up on the screen? Do we not have it open? No? Okay. I can do it without. I just thought it would be potentially helpful. On page 150 of the agenda packet, there's a summary of the proposed action. This is the annual item to review the MCAG board appointments to regional boards and commissions. This happens every year. Number one, to basically confirm or reaffirm for the incumbents that are in existing appointments to boards and commissions to confirm that they are interested in continuing in that role and to address any vacancies that may exist. In summary, you will see on the requested action is to reappoint the incumbents, which is, all of this is up for discussion, but the way it's keyed up to make it a little simpler is you can reappoint the incumbent directors in the roles with the adjustments of moving Director Pedroso to the primary board member position for the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, as he was, I believe, previously alternate, and then to nominate and appoint alternates to CalCog and to the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. So on the table at the bottom of page 150, it shows there who our incumbents are for the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council. That has a specific requirement of having a city and a county rep of our two, and then the alternate can be from either. So we have it as Director McDaniel, who is currently the chair of the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council, and then our city rep is Director Nagy, and then our alternate is Director Silvera. No action is needed there. Calvans, assuming that Director Samra is interested in continuing in that role. We have Director Nagy as the alternate. I don't anticipate, unless either of those two board members would like to make a change, that there's an action needed there. For CalCog, Director Pedroso has been in that role for a few years now. We do have a vacancy as an alternate to CalCog. CalCog is the state association, the California Association of Councils of Government. It's basically representatives from each of the agencies like MCAG, primarily just transportation, some transit discussion, some housing discussion, but it's the transportation planning agencies. The alternate has not to date been very active, and because Director Pedroso is very active, so we haven't needed to call on that. It is a good introduction into broader, it's an interesting platform to see broader perspectives on issues that we may feel strongly about one way, and you go to that meeting and you have someone at the opposite end of that issue because they're from a completely different part of the state and view it differently. So it's an interesting group, and you can be as involved or not as you would like in the alternate role. As it would work is that in the event that Director Pedroso was unable to participate in a meeting, that I would contact you to fill in that role. And then the last is the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. Again, Director Pedroso was in the alternate role. Now that we have the vacancy as the primary, the recommendation is to move him into the primary role and to request an alternate nomination. So in the past, the board has done this a number of different ways. First, it's typically to open up for any discussion to see if there's any changes that are not reflected here, and then you can either take them individually or make those nominations to those two vacancies and then adopt the table as your appointments. I'm happy to speak to any of the particular appointment agencies, but I tried to include more information in the packet this year for those that might be interested.
Questions? Comments? Is everybody okay with what is in place already? Yeah. Yep.
As far as alternates, do they have to be county and city, or can they be all county?
For CalCog, no, I don't. I'm not aware of. Neither of those have the specification that it needs to be city county. The only one that is that way is the Policy Council.
Got it.
Yeah.
I would like to continue on as my role with San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority as the primary and with CalCog.
Great.
Yeah. Is anybody interested in the alternate position for CalCog? I mean, I served on as the member for, I think, 4 years. And so if nobody wants it, I'll do it. Josh goes all the meetings, very minimal. But if I ever was called in, I'd already kind of have an idea. I know Bill and a lot of the other folks,
Great.
so.
I will second that motion.
Are we just backtracking a little bit? Are we comfortable with Mr. Samra on Calvans as a board member? Is that acceptable for everybody, or is that too?
I'm actually having a ball going to those meetings. Wait, I get treated like a king when I go for a meeting, so I would like to continue if it's possible.
Man right over there. All right.
That also covers the San Joaquin Joint Powers too, or no?
Nope, we do need an alternate nomination for the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, which is the passenger rail agency that is responsible for managing the San Joaquins, the Amtrak San Joaquins. And yes.
I'd like to nominate Director Serrato.
I'll second that.
Perfect.
That's a quick. All right,
Open your mouth.
I'll accept.
You accept it.
Accepted, good.
You set a good role model, Lloyd, when you volunteer.
Is there any public, before we take a vote, is there any public input on these nominations? Okay, we don't see anyone coming in, so then we need a motion and a second to nominate
The table.
the table.
I will make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to nominate as been stated in this discussion. Any further questions or comments? Not hearing any, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you very much. That was nice. Next, item B, appointment members of the governing board to the 2025 Ana Marie Fuentes Scholarship Selection Committee. Mary?
Here as I am annually, to request that the board appoint at least one member of your board to sit on the selection committee for the 2025 Ana Maria Fuentes Scholarship. This scholarship is $1,000 that is bestowed upon a graduating high school senior from a high school within Merced County, and it is done in honor of a former MCAG employee who passed away several years ago. The students are actually eligible for up to 4 years of scholarship of $1,000 per year, should they maintain their GPA and all other requirements. Last year, we converted the application to be electronic, and we are excited that the Going Merry platform is still heavily utilized. When I checked several days ago, we already had 4 submissions and another 46 in draft, which I expect those numbers to go up as we inch closer to the deadline next Friday. I'm sure some teenagers plan well in advance, but many probably do wait until the last minute. And the high school district has been very helpful in helping us get that platform, get that going, get that converted online, and then pushing that scholarship as well, along with a number of others. The selection committee is composed of MCAG staff, a member of the Fuentes family, as well as a member representative from your body, and time commitment is about a couple hours to review the applications on the platform, as well as about an hour to meet as a committee to select a student to come before the board for final consideration in April. This scholarship is 100% funded by donations from the community, and we always welcome more if you're so interested. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Any nominations?
I would like to serve on that committee.
Very good.
I'll second that.
Do we have any input from the public before we take a vote? Okay, we have a motion and a second. As stated, any questions or comments? Not hearing any, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Adopt the proposed 2025 One Voice legislative platform.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. And I have Ben Goldine from Townsend Public Affairs, who's zooming in from the East Coast with me. The action item before you today is to adopt the proposed One Voice legislative platform. We're here a little earlier than we are annually because our delegation moved expeditiously and efficiently this year. So we're excited to bring that before you today. For the newer board members, this process started back in October when the board adopted the annual One Voice goals and schedule. The delegation met in January, and we're bringing forward to you today the platform, which coalesces around a central focus of building strong connections and strong communities. There are 4 overarching themes or priorities on that platform, which you can find on page 158 in your packet. And that is to advance regional transportation connectivity, enhance public safety, improve water infrastructure, and as just a general priority of supporting any member jurisdictions' community project funding or congressionally directed spending requests that are still alive while we're in DC. So within those first 3 priorities, you have a number of local projects that illustrate the need to address these themes that have a federal nexus, and those are across the region. When we took this to the TRB last week, the only addition we made was adding the city of Los Banos to parentheses under 2C and 3A. And we intend to work with the interim city manager there on adding some additional projects as he settles into his role there out in Los Banos. So there will be some additions there, but we don't see that as needing to change the overarching platform that you see in front of you. We'll just probably add a few more projects to bolster the need for those priorities that we'll be advocating for. Once you adopt this platform today, the delegation will commence meeting in person starting in the end of March. We'll have 4 meetings before we go to DC. May 13th through the 16th, we'll have 2 very full days of meetings throughout DC, and we will come back and report to you on the outcome of those meetings when we are done. And with that, Ben, did you have anything to add? And we're happy to, both of us are happy to answer any questions. So, Ben?
Thank you. We appreciate the great collaboration among all the One Voice delegates to bring this platform to you tonight. It's been, as Mary Michael outlined, a collaborative process since the fall to bring this together. And we're really looking forward to hosting the One Voice delegation once again out here in Washington, D.C. in May. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? We have a motion and a second to approve as stated. Is there any public input before we take a vote? Not seeing anyone. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next item 8 is discussion items. We have 2 items on that, the transportation network and the regional transportation plan. And
Mr. Chair, I will be Meg. Unfortunately for you all, I am not as brief as Meg, but I'm going to do my best. She has prepared me well. So the first item, item A, is the transportation network vulnerability assessment. So MCAG was awarded a Caltrans adaptation planning grant. I think it's been now a year and a half ago, to develop a transportation network vulnerability assessment. And the assessment's going to evaluate potential risks that our extreme weather events pose to our regional transportation infrastructure. Things like, the excessive flooding that we've had, erosion in some regions, wildfire is one of those that would be under this kind of an assessment. But maybe more connected to us is also the extreme heat events. So the information that's included in this assessment is intended to really help our local jurisdictions secure funding. There's a variety of these newer climate resiliency programs, and having this type of an assessment will have your jurisdictions primed to be able to take advantage of those programs. We and this board authorized a contract. We procured, and the board authorized a contract with WSP to do this assessment. I think that contract authorization was in July of last year. So this spring we are launching a combined outreach campaign with our 2026 RTPSES that I'll talk about next, as well as the Merced Regional Multimodal Access Plan. There's a lot of community outreach that we're doing this spring, and rather than hit our communities with 3 surveys within days or weeks of each other, we're trying to strategically go out once, collect this information for all purposes in one outreach strategy. So we have Tim Gross, the project manager from WSP, online, and he is going to do a short presentation, and it is short because he gave it at the TRB, and it's very good, to providing an overview of the project objectives and the expected outcomes. So Michael, do we have Mr. Gross on? Great. The floor is yours, Mr. Gross.
Thank you very much. And you can go on to the next slide. I'll just give a quick overview of the purpose of the project, and really it's to evaluate how climate-related hazards, so extreme weather, may impact the county's transportation network and the people who depend on it, both now and in the future. One of the goals of the project is to develop a list of the highest priority projects based on their risks that they face from natural hazards, and do cost-benefit analyses on those projects to help make the case that they're sound investments. We also want to align with both state and federal resilience and pre-disaster mitigation programs. There's a lot of funding available out there, and part of the prerequisite for going after that funding is to have an area-wide plan like this one to be able to show what rose to the top in terms of priority, and of course making the county more resilient to extreme weather events. If you go to the next slide, so this is just the process. We first are performing a vulnerability assessment on key issue areas and where we should prioritize taking a closer look. So that deliverable is in its draft phase now. We are then going to go on to strategies to mitigate risks, and then select a few projects to perform benefit cost analysis on. And then we'll wrap up next fall and winter with the final transportation network vulnerability assessment. Throughout this process, we have a working group of stakeholders that meets roughly every other month, and we have some public engagement as well that I'll talk about in a minute. Next slide. So when we talk about climate hazards or extreme weather, what do we mean? So flood risk, like we've seen in recent winter storms. If you go to the next slide, extreme heat. So we've seen warming temperatures over the last century or so, like this graph is showing, longer and hotter heat waves in the summer and fall. If you go to the next slide, these are some of the wildfire risk in the hillier areas of the county and the outskirts of the county. We expect increases in that as well. And then next slide. So in terms of what the science suggests the climate will be like in San Joaquin Valley in the coming decades, we expect to see higher temperatures, longer, more severe droughts, declining snowpack, and a change in pattern in terms of snow melt and spring high precipitation events that could lead to more flood risk, and then more frequent and extensive wildfires. And the next slide, our first major deliverable that I mentioned was the vulnerability assessment. The key components of that are really just a general identification of hazards and how they impact travelers and the broader transportation system. We're going to summarize the science in terms of what projections look like going forward for these conditions, weather conditions, and then go through an exercise where we prioritize assets according to both the likelihood that they'll experience these hazards and the consequence. So really how important is a roadway or a bikeway or a bridge's role in the overall transportation system. On the next slide, these are the different combinations of assets and hazards that we're looking at as part of that prioritization process. So these are the assets on as the rows and the different hazards as the columns. And what we'll end up, what we'll result with is what you'll see on the next slide, tables that look like this, where we have, we're sorted by levels of likelihood, and then also a consequence score for different assets. So this is just a conceptual structure. Just to go into a little bit more on the next slide of the engagement, we have, like I mentioned, a working group of stakeholders. Their role was really to help identify potential impacts, to provide guidance, to provide input on the deliverables, inform their constituents, and notify them of engagement opportunities. And we meet every other month, and they've been really helpful in shaping the direction of the study thus far. In terms of public engagement, you heard a bit about that at the beginning. We have a public engagement, public outreach plan that we've developed that covers, guidance to educating residents, businesses, and stakeholders. Covers the strategies that will emphasize in the engagement, and like was mentioned before, we really want to do a lot of that through pop-up events, really existing community events where we can have a booth or just be able to reach out to folks in a variety of different settings. And there's an emphasis on getting to harder reach communities through community-based organizations, through outreach in multiple languages as well. And with that, that wraps it up for me, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any questions. Now we'll move on to the Regional Transportation Plan.
I'm going down here for this because it'll be easier. I'm also made for this item. It's the heels. All right. I think I turned my, I'm not supposed to touch that. I think I turned it on before I left. Okay, great. Does this wheel work here? Perfect. Okay, so let me get everything ready here. Okay, so we are in RTP season. Can you hear me okay, or do I need to move? Okay, good. So MCAG is kicking off RTP season with our 2026 RTP SES. That's the Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy that we are required to update every 4 years, which means our last one was adopted in 2022. So to kick off the process, we really tried to, if I had to say, this is a fundamental purpose for MCAG. The RTP, if I had to say, why do MPOs exist? What are your core functions? The Regional Transportation Plan is at the top of that list. It's a core function for us. So we don't spend a lot of time on the RTP development outside of these cyclical years. So when we come to this point in the process, we like to do these, we call the RTP 101s, but an overview just to prime everyone's memories that have been through this before, or to help educate people who might be going through the RTP cycle for the first time. So we will be talking about what it is, why we do it, why it's important for local jurisdictions, and what purpose it serves for you all, who was involved in the development, and what the process is going to look like between now and its adoption in 2026. So the RTP is a long-range vision and investment framework for the region's transportation network. So it's a comprehensive planning document that outlines our transportation goals and policies and projects over a minimum of 20-year span. It really is a blueprint for how our region is going to manage its transportation system across all of our modes. And I think most importantly, how we're going to be meeting those future mobility needs. So it's comprised of a policy element, an action element, a financial element, the project list that I'm going to talk about in a second. I think, though, when you talk about looking at this long-range plan that is identifying how we're spending money on transportation projects that are meeting the needs of future our residents into the future, the most important things to remember is that this document has to be what's called fiscally constrained. So the project costs, the costs that are included in here, cannot be higher than the revenue that we're assuming. You can assume revenue, you can assume grants, you can assume things, but you have to have it has to be fiscally constrained. And it also has to pass regional air quality emissions standards, which is a whole nother process that we'll leave for a different 101. And then, of course, this whole process from start to finish requires a lot of public involvement and is part of that coordinated outreach that I was talking about in the vulnerability assessment. So the SES, so we refer to it as the RTP SES. It is technically one stapled document, but it's two component parts. The SES is a state requirement, so the federal government requires us to do the RTP. The state requires us to do the SES. It was a requirement that was established under SB 375 in 2008, I believe. And it requires that we develop a variety of transportation and land use scenarios. You're going to hear the word scenarios more times than probably you have in the last 10 years in the next 2. It is just going to be a lot of talk about scenario planning. And those scenarios need to demonstrate how we can tweak our investments in transportation planning and land uses to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from passenger vehicles. So the whole idea is how can we improve our air quality by having lower vehicle miles traveled, and what do those growth scenarios need to look like to promote that type of an outcome? The California Air Resources Board established what we call targets. It's essentially a target reduction. It's represented as a percentage. Like you need to show a 2% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by this year and by that year. So we need to work with these scenarios to demonstrate how we can reach those air quality emission reduction targets that the state sets us. In order to successfully have, hopefully, an eventually approved SES document. So if we talk about how the RTP and SES work together, as I said, they are mandated by the federal government with the RTP and the state government with the SES. They're in one document, but they're two distinct kind of, I'll say, SES is like a chapter. But they have some shared goals. And the shared goals between both is the goal for our future investments to help reduce our traffic, improve our air quality, promote healthier, better connected communities, improve access to jobs, housing, services, all the things that we all are trying to do, all on one cover of one document. It's a lofty it's a lofty goal. This is a very, very big undertaking for our staff. It's a multi-year process, and it will consume us for the next 2 years, 18 months. Okay, so I think this is probably one of the most important slides in the presentation, because it talks about why the RTP and the SES are important to our local jurisdictions. I know we live in alphabet soup. We're always spouting out, acronyms for this, that, and the other. This is one that I really like to say, okay, this is the one we need to pay attention. Your teams need to be really, really involved. We will be talking to your staff, and we already are, about the development of this project, because there are real implications for you all in the work that you're going to be doing, primarily in this next 4-year cycle, right? Once we adopt this is the RTP until we do it next time. So some of those, I think the important parts of why we need to be making sure that we have close coordination with the jurisdictions are listed. So, of course, we want to make sure that we are coordinating all of our transportation planning across the jurisdictions, right? That makes sense. We want an integrated, efficient transportation network, so we need to coordinate. This is the master planning document that kind of captures, like an umbrella that captures all of that. We also want to make sure that the regional plan that we're producing is reflecting your local priorities. We don't want to have a regional document that kind of sets the stage for future planning over the next 20 years that doesn't reflect what you all have in your local local priorities, and we need your team's heavy involvement to help make sure that document is that the document reflects that. The second one is the RTP project list. I will talk to the TRB and the planning work group on this for telling blue in the face, because it is critically important that we have a comprehensive RTP project list. We really we rely on your staff review to make sure that the project lists that we have reflect your priorities and the projects that you're working on into the future. And that's critical because of the access to funding. So the RTP project list is the fundamental list, the kind of, is this, when you go for any type of state, regional, local, federal funding, often, is this in your MPO's RTP? You want the answer to be yes. So that is also very true for Measure V. The Measure V policies require to be eligible for East or West Side regional project funding has to be in the RTP. If you are going to put federal dollars on your project, it has to be in the RTP. Caltrans will ask, is this in the RTP? It's a very fundamental part of the work that we do. And then I think probably just the kind of a broader statement is that if we don't have an RTP that's approved, then we essentially are not complying with air quality conformity, and so all federal transportation funding would cease coming into our region until that changed. And the same is true for state SB1 funds. If we don't have an approved SCS approved by CARB, then not just MCAG, but none of the local jurisdictions would be eligible for any of the SB1 funding programs either. So if I'm laying it on thick, it's because I'm really trying to underscore how critical this is, and you'll hear a lot from us and the team about it in the coming months. Okay, so we had an item, feels like it was last month, it could have been before that, to ask this board to form the RTP roundtable that we provided, kind of like who would be involved in the development. You can see here, this is our project development team, and then the stakeholders and decision makers. You see that RTP roundtable is listed here. Obviously, all of you will be making the final decisions on the final scenario for the SES, for the adoption of the documents. We also have community-based organizations and non-governmental organizations. The public is really a big part of this. And then we have an entire project development team that you see in the right column. This you don't need to necessarily read, but it is an update to that RTP roundtable. These are the folks that we have confirmed to be part of this group that meets for the first time tomorrow. I'm happy to report that you can see your jurisdictional representatives. My request to you is to please emphasize the importance that if it's your city manager or someone, that if they can't make it, to always send someone. When they get that email that says, here's the project list we have from 2022, can you please update it, that they are on it, because the implications are pretty significant if that project list is inadequate once we go through this whole process. And then I will say, though, we have our roundtable members will be meeting tomorrow, but we also have vacancies that we were not able to fill. You can see a few here that were listed as the target agencies for some of the, we want a really comprehensive roundtable with a lot of perspectives, so you can see how we're reaching out, and these have not yet been successfully confirmed. But you can see here, if you have anyone in mind that is either a representative of the agencies listed that you want us to follow up with, or if you have other representative agencies that would fill these categories, please let us know. And related documents, you'll see these come through. The EIR obviously is one. The FTIP is we program the funding to projects that are listed in the RTP, air quality conformity analysis. These are all, so you hear these documents come through at different times. It's all related to the overarching RTP SES. We won't go into all of those because there's a lot. Okay, so in terms of schedule, we're kicking off the stakeholder and community engagement now into the spring. We're going to be focusing on the vision and goals that I mentioned, which is kind of the policy element of the document. And then by the summer, we're going to be developing the land use and transportation scenarios. So we will be bringing those scenarios to the board and going out into the public to share those. They all have to be modeled. We use really technical, sophisticated modeling to run those scenarios through. Again, we're trying to see how those scenarios perform against those target GHG reductions that we're trying to meet. And then we go back out for another round of community engagement. And ultimately that whole process, and of course with regular updates and involvement with the TRB and the roundtable and the board, all of that will come to a preferred alternative. That preferred alternative will, upon the direction of the board, would then become the core scenario for the SDS development. And all of that wraps up with a goal to have a draft document ready for review in about a year-ish, and then with final adoption by 2026. We do have a hard adoption schedule. I believe it's September. That sounds good. September of 2026. September is always stuck in my mind for RTP adoption. So we do have time, but it is a pretty good steady clip that we move at because we have to have that submitted to the federal government by the deadline. And that is the broad process. I mentioned these already in terms of kind of the most immediate next steps. I do just want to underscore that we will keep written updates for this process in Elizabeth's Director of Transportation Planning and Programming. Updates that go in your packet every month. And then there will be key points where we're bringing more presentation style information. I really tried to go through this quickly, but this, I will say, is a topic that some boards dig in and spend a 2-hour workshop on. So we tried to kind of hit the main topics. If you want to know more, all the information is going to be available on our website as we go forward. If any of you are interested to learn more about what we're doing or want to be more involved, let us know. If at any time the board wants to have a workshop, we can also schedule one of those, which may be appropriate as we get into the scenario selection process. And I think that is it. And I do think I have Meg. I think Meg is on listening and probably grading me. So if you have questions, we'll just give them to her. But that is the end of my presentation.
Questions? Oh, yeah.
I'll just make a comment. Those groups that spend 2 hours on this don't have staff doing a good job that they trust.
Oh, thank you. It took me a minute, sorry.
Hey, you may not notice it, but that was a compliment.
No, it was. I didn't know you meant us. I thought you were talking about the groups that didn't sign up.
Oh, there's some in there that I was happy. No, the ones that spent 2 hours.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Pereira.
Okay, thank you very much. Public have anything to say on this item? Discussion only? Okay, we will move on to Transit Joint Powers Authority. We have 2 items, the action and discussion. There's nothing on the agenda for those. So we'll move on to item 11 is an action item, and it's adoption of the fiscal year 24-25 budget amendment number 1.
Good afternoon. Excuse me, my voice is going out today, so I'm going to try to get through this. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we've got 2 actions requested in this item, and I've got a presentation. You have the staff report starting on page 165. Requested action, the first one is to adopt fiscal year 24-25 budget amendment number 1. I'm going to skip over the numbers right now because we're going to get into them in the next few slides. We want to reallocate some funds that we saved on a previous project, as well as transferring some funds in between the 2 projects here. The second action we'll ask, and I'll put this back up at the end of the presentation, is to authorize the executive director to enter into a construction contract for the construction of the Billy Wright Landfill Phase 3A liner expansion and surface impoundment projects in the amount of just shy of $7.7 million. So on December 20th, we released an invitation for bids. We had a pre-bid meeting on site on January 6th. We were very pleased that we had, I believe, 8 different general contractors on site for the pre-walk. Final bids were received on January 30th, and we actually received 6 bids on this project. We intentionally went out very early in the year this year, hoping to get these guys before they already had something else on their books. So we were very pleased to get the 6 bids. You can see the low bid was Wood Brothers, Inc. at $7.698. Sukit Construction was only $20,000 higher. So we were pretty pleased that those 2 low bids were very close to each other. You know, Gwynn at 11 million, they must have had something else going on. They weren't very interested in the work. The tables here show this is actually 2 different CIPs because of the similarity in the nature of the work. They both involve excavation dirt work and geosynthetic liner construction. We combined them into one bid. It does get a little tricky because we do have 2 separate engineers of record for the 2 tasks. So we're working with 2 different companies on the engineering side. You'll see that reflected when we look at some of the numbers here. The surface impoundment project is a pond, basically similar to what we have out at Highway 59 with the geosynthetic liner for our leachate. We pump the leachate in there and it evaporates off right now. That's our current treatment system. Currently at Billy Wright, we're just storing it in tanks on site and using it for dust control. With the opening of our new phase 3, we're really not going to have that ability to use it all up that way. So we need the evaporation pond for disposal. The expenses to date, that's generally permitting and design. For the surface impoundment, we've spent a little over $200,000, leaving us $2.3 million for construction. The bid on this item came in a little higher than we had thought it was going to be. The construction bid plus the contingency of 10% came to slightly over $3 million. The project management, construction management cost is estimated at $80,000, giving us a shortfall of not quite $745,000 on this task of the project. When we look at phase 3 expansion, the new waste cell, our original budget was $7.7 million. Expenses to date about $537. Remaining budget of not quite $7.2. The construction bid on this phase came in much lower than our budget estimate. That was very good. The construction bid plus contingency was $5.4 million. The PM/CM cost here is $1 million. That's because that engineer is doing all of the construction management for both phases of the project. So when you look at that, you see $80,000 on one, $1 million on the other. That's the discrepancy. The $80,000 on the surface pond is basically just for engineering support, requests for information and whatnot. The $1 million is covering all of the on-site construction management and CQA. That means there we had a surplus on that budget of about $675,000. So not quite a wash between the two. We have got about a $69,000 shortfall in the budget. So what we're proposing, asking you to authorize on this table, you can see we've got the budgets are running across, show our 10.3 current budget. Billy Wright Road was a project we did last year in conjunction with the county. We rehabilitated the road from Highway 50 or 152 all the way down to the entrance to the site. Our portion of that contract ended up only being $328,000. We had committed up to $500,000, so we had about $171,000 left over on that project. What we're looking to do is move about $572 out of the liner project and take that $171,000 left over from Billy Wright, move those into the surface impoundment project. There's no net effect on the CIP budget because all this money is already in the CIP. We're just reallocating it between these two projects now. And that brings us back to the final, where we are asking the board to take these two actions: adopt budget amendment 1, reallocating the 171,837 from the Billy Wright Road project to the surface impoundment project, reallocating funds from the landfill phase 3A in the amount of 572,824 to the surface impoundment. And then the second item would be to authorize the executive director to enter into a construction contract for the construction of Billy Wright landfill phase 3A liner expansion and surface impoundment project in the amount of $7,698,069 with Wood Brothers Inc. That is the contract bid amount. In the staff report, you'll see we've also accounted for the 10% contingency. I'll look at that number real quick. The overall authorization we're asking for today for the max budget with the 10% contingency is $8,467,876. And with that, I will take any questions.
Questions? Questions from the public? I'll entertain a motion. Okay, we have a motion and second to adopt the amendment number 1 to the fiscal year budget 2025, and also authorizes the executive director to sign the construction contract. Any further questions or comments? Not hearing any. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on. There's nothing in 12 to discuss, so we'll move on to item 14, executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of announcements. One is that Directors McDaniel and Nagy and myself will be going to the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council's Valley Voice program to Sacramento on March 12th. So we'll be reporting out on that meeting, or that series of meetings with our state legislators and relevant agencies. I also just wanted to note that you may have seen the press release today where the Transportation Secretary held a press conference in Los Angeles regarding high-speed rail investments, the federal funding to high-speed rail. I just want to note that this is an item or an issue that we have been following at the Regional Policy Council level. We have and just in short, the announcement was that they will be reviewing the agreements to the federal investments that have been made to the high-speed rail project. We anticipate this will be a bit of a process. We will be meeting tomorrow and talking about this at the Valley level for, again, the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Council. And then we are also working with our Valley-wide lobbyist or advocate to develop some talking points and messaging on, how to kind of work through as the administration works through this review, which I think many folks can argue is happening in response to maybe the project not moving as anticipated. And so we're trying to walk a balance of supporting the project as we have in the completion of the segment for all of the regional benefits that we've talked about, while also, meeting the administration where it's at in terms of wanting to make sure that, grant terms and agreements have been met and all of those good things. So just more to come there. It will be an item of discussion for the next regional rail planning committee here in the next couple of weeks. So more to come, but just wanted to make sure that was on your radar as we formulate a way to maybe engage in that conversation. The policy conference is sooner than I would like it to be, but it is coming up in April. The team out there is doing an excellent job. I believe we have, our sponsorships are coming in. Please, I think the thing that we're seeing is registration maybe being a little slow from the jurisdiction. So please, if your teams have not registered, please do so. If you're getting a hotel or you have anyone, especially for our West Side folks that are going to be coming over, please do that. We have released a draft platform. I'm sorry. a basic preliminary kind of an agenda, but the topics that we're going to be covering are going to be housing and what our demographics projections are saying about the future of housing demand. Of course, the future of passenger rail writ large, not just high-speed rail, but that will definitely be part of the conversation. We will be getting the unveiling of the draft comprehensive multimodal corridor plan for Highway 99 at the meeting. We will have partners from transit agency partners in the Valley who have been the first to run hydrogen pilot buses. So we'll hear from them as to how that's working out for them. We know that hydrogen is hopefully in our near future. So we'll be excited to kind of hear how that's going for them. Also a panel on kind of the changing state and federal landscapes and dynamics and what does that look like in terms of just the business that we're doing and operating within. We'll have a breakout on climate resiliency programs and then a plenary session on basically, there's a lot of research around or a lot of discussion around the vehicle miles travels metric, where they're measuring how much people are driving. Is that the right metric, especially for rural areas, to determine your progress that you're making around trying to improve air quality? And there's a rural induced demand study that's going to be talked about there too. So there's lots going on. I do encourage you all, because you will be our local participants. We are also designing the transit services that are going to be connecting the El Capitan Hotel and UC Merced to pick up at the city lot across from MCAG, so you can park across from us and get picked up by the bus and get out to the UC, as well as out to the tarmac for dinner and festivities. So just keep an eye out for that, but we hope you'll take the challenge and ride the bus with us. And I also left a flyer for our 99. I mentioned the CMCP, the State Route 99 comprehensive multimodal plan, the outreach opportunities for the Merced, Stanislaus, and San Joaquin segment start tonight at 5:30, and then there's 2 next week. They are all virtual. You can do 3 of them, 1 of them, but please share this. We need our community residents to be participating in this and getting the information and providing feedback. So I've provided that. And then I believe my last item, let me check my notes, is correct. I do want to introduce 2 staff. They are not new staff, but they could be new to you because their roles and responsibilities are changing a little bit. Navneet Matu has been with us for 6 years. Right? She is, and she's been a member of our transit team. She is our numbers person, our NTD reporting, all of the technical, sitting in there with like her, abacus and her little visor and light on. She's always working the numbers on ridership. She's an excellent member of the team. Staff services analyst too. You will be seeing more of her as her roles and responsibilities change. She may even be in front before the board at some point. And then Tara Rodriguez is also not new to the team. 2 of our board members will know her well because she has been the lead on yards on our transit team for some time. She has recently been promoted to our new contract specialist, so for transit. So it'll be both for the bus and for yards. So we will be backfilling her position, but in her new role, you will be hearing more from her as well. So not new to us, but new to you maybe. So I wanted to give them a welcome. So, and they came in to observe, so they know what to expect next time. So, yes. So I know that was a long report, but that is the end of my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll go with our director's report. We'll start to my left, Mr. Pereira.
Well, congratulations on your new positions with us, and look forward to seeing good works. That's it.
Thank you.
No, report?
Nothing to report.
I just had one question. I don't recall because I left a little bit early. Who won the fanciest decorated Christmas office? I forgot to ask that at the last board meeting.
Lindsay, right there.
Which one was yours?
She had, Yeah, she had the naughty list outside her door. So if you walk into our office, she was to the right side, had a bunch of stuff out on the outside. Yeah, she was the one that probably should have won.
I'm pretty sure I voted for that one, so congratulations.
Although I think Josh Allen in a Santa hat should have taken it. But.
I just want to know who put my name on that naughty list. Had nothing to report.
Santa.
Well, I have a lot to report because Dawes Palace just had our city council meeting last night where we approved a whole bunch of things that are going to improve our town as we grow and progress. First of all, the Lorraine Street Bridge project is going very well. It is almost done, and I am very excited because that's my bridge at my house, so I can get out of town. The water treatment plant is on schedule, and it is in the stages of building now their offices. They've filled in all the conduits and all. They're doing very well on that. The Valeria Sidewalk Street project has been set for mid-June or July when school gets out because that is a path for kids to walk. And then we will be doing the street on East Blossom in front of the high school because it is horrible as soon as school's out, as soon as summer school is out. People in town are seeing that we are fixing the sidewalks around town. That is something that we got some grant funding for at no cost to homeowners, and now they're seeing it, so people are talking about that. The roads are still in production, always. So those are projects, but we also got to celebrate. We had a national champion cheer team from Dawes Palace that won in Vegas, and 4 state title teams. So they got to be acknowledged. And the things we're changing, we are addressing our ordinance for ABC licensing with local businesses to remove hindrances so that businesses, restaurants are enticed to come because we will recognize these things. We also have a development called Rainbrook Run being built, and soon as the water is all online, and we have raised impact fees from almost nothing to appropriate, so ties in with our Measure S with fire. That vote is going out on March 4th. We've already had a couple of hundred people vote. And specifically for impact fees, they were $100 per unit for fire, and now they are $3,000 per unit. So that is the first of 3 developments that are planned in the next couple of years. We approved the multi-jurisdictional roadway safety plan. We entered into an agreement with the planning and mapping for Rainbrook Run. We also went into an agreement with Townsend Public Affairs to be our grant writers.
Good.
Very excited about that. We will have a new interim police chief, I believe March 1st. He's just in backgrounds right now. That will hopefully be John Smothers. And we will be pursuing a full-time new chief of police. We also approved the increase in our refuse. We are currently $217,000 in the red annually. So the increase will put us in the black by year 3. So we are looking at it as a business, and we're hoping not to run in the black or in the red anymore. Everything in the black. So on Measure S, March 4th, it's our half-cent sales tax increase to solely fund fire with the impact fees appropriate, and that it may work to partnership and put us on track to be self-sufficient. So big things in Dawes Palace are happening. That's it. That's enough.
Well, I had a
Very good.
I had a 601-page agenda last night, and I think I'll start on page 1 here.
That was us.
I have nothing else to report. Okay. Okay, thank you all. We'll be moving into closed session for Merced County Association of Governments, conference with legal counsel, and over real property, and the Transit Joint Powers Authority of Merced, conference with legal counsel. So with that, thank you all for joining us this afternoon.
Nav, can you stay, please?
Thank you.
Okay, we are back under legal counsel on closed session. No report, only direction was given. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.